guys with all the books. I hope you're not getting tired of this shirt. I'm on a filming roll. The lighting is behaving and my mind is behaving, so we're just gonna go with it. We're gonna get another one out, cranking them out today. So I am here with the first part of my, what month are we in? April wrap up. And spoiler alert, there are 2 books in this stack that have high hopes, high chances of being in my top books of the year. So the first one of those is the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This is set on the continent of Africa back in the 60s. It's an extreme fundamentalist Baptist minister takes his wife and 4 daughters to be missionaries in a tiny village in Africa that is only attainable by a prop plane. So they are very isolated. He is very distanced from his family. He's very focused on converting these African villagers, and the wife and daughters are left to suffer. Thematically, Barbara Kingsolver just tears it up in this book. She is spot on. The biblical connections, she really studied. She actually says this in the book, in the intro or the outro, or on the author's note at the beginning, but she studied the Bible to get the text that she used. That was one of the texts that she studied. Just her detail is spot on, and she herself lived in Africa. I think her parents maybe were medical or some such. They weren't missionaries, but her childhood was there for about 5 years, she said, and you can really tell that this is the book of hers, I think, that is the one that has the emotional connection for her. And I really love that about authors. I've read 2 or 3 others of hers that I've thought were really good, but this one is great, and I think greatness comes from an author when they tell a story that is really close to their hearts. So, and that is what this one is. Now, the first 4/5 of the book are the main story, and then there's like a 200-page epilogue, but it is somewhat anticlimactic, but I still enjoyed it anyway. But just learning all these girls' personalities and the way it's written, each section, it's 5 sections, and each section is introduced by the mother from the future looking back, and it's just a profound read for me. Highly recommend this one. Then I read The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This one I was hoping to read for middle grades March and didn't quite make it, but I'm glad that they did that middle grades March, and so many people read this that made me want to pick it up. It was absolutely delightful. This is a fantasy fiction about a little girl who, as a baby, she is left out in the woods by the village. They have this belief that a child has to be sacrificed. The last child, is it the last or the first? Anyway, this particular child in the sequence of the village has to be sacrificed each year to this witch that lives in the woods to protect the village. And there is indeed a witch, but she's not what she is said to be. And there's drama and scheming with the village, the leadership, that comes to play, and a just interesting little magical system. There's a dragon and a swamp monster and the witch and the little girl and her good friend, and it's just a lovely, delightful story. And I really enjoyed the parallels with puberty. So the girl's magic is tied up for a while and she can't access it and doesn't realize. And the parallels they draw between her magic coming back to her and her going through puberty are just really spot on. So this is a great book for kids and thoroughly entertaining for adults. Highly recommend as well. And then I finally got to Ailment by Fiona Mosley. This one is another one of those that seem to be popular right now. At least I keep picking them up. The ones where a family is living off the grid. So it's a dad, again, with 2 children. And he has taken them back to the country. For a while they were being raised by him and a grandmother. The mother's kind of mostly out of the story. But then he takes them and builds this house, and they're kind of more or less living off the land and money that dad earns from fights. He's this massive, massive man. And in this one, he's really, I would say, good-hearted. He's got his quirks, but he's a good-hearted guy and trying to raise the kids right through his way of thinking. It's in the UK. It was interesting to me. This was kind of awkward because the story goes that, I mean, I kind of understand part of it. The mother owned the land and ended up selling it to this corrupt guy in town. But the father comes back and builds a house on this land that he doesn't own, but he doesn't feel like land ownership is a thing. I don't know. It just didn't seem like it was something that actually happens in modern times. Maybe it does. I don't know. But that was part of the conflict, him building this house and then this guy putting pressure on him in the community. And the corruption in the community leadership. Yes. So what I loved about this was the writing style. It is absolutely gorgeously written. It's a lot of almost stream of consciousness from the point of view of the boy in the story. I loved the way the boy was written. They really focus on him being atypical in that, you know, in society we're tend to enforce this belief that girls like these things and boys like these things, and I don't like that stereotype, so I really loved the way it was bucked in this story. But yes, this is an enjoyable read. The flow of the words are just gorgeous, just gorgeous. So the ending was a little bit sudden, I think, but yeah, really great read. And then we're going with 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is a duology, YA fantasy, really neat magical system. I read her trilogy that's a prequel to this and enjoyed it. And these are indeed better than that even. The second one is Crooked Kingdoms. And I would highly suggest that if you're going to read this, that you plan on reading them back to back, because this one leaves you on quite a cliffhanger, and the 2 books are really tightly connected. So you're going to need to just go ahead and read them both right away. Interesting, the plot of this is kind of a heist scene along the lines of those ocean movies, you know, Ocean's 7 or 8 or 11, I don't know. But it's a heist like that, and a lot of the book is just them planning the heist, and then the heist is in the last, like, 4th of the book. And I actually found that slightly boring, not excessively so, but it was a little bit boring. But it's really just the way that the story is connected. That's the foundation for telling this story. The story is really about the characters, and she has written 6 characters that I am in love with, all 6 of them. Completely in love with them. I'm very invested in their lives. So she tells the story, she creates these characters that you just absolutely, absolutely love. And a lot of the book is the backstories for these characters. So you're just constantly hearing more about what happened in the past to make them like they are and to make the present like it is. So yes, this is really entertaining and really great characterization. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Actually, I already finished, well, I did finish this one because it's my wrap-up, duh. But I'm almost finished with Crooked Kingdom as well, and really enjoying it too. And then I finished another Mary Stewart, Thornyhold, and she did it again. This one is completely different from the others that I've read. So this one is set in the UK, but this one is got a slightly magical flair to it. The girl, it starts out, it's kind of like following her as she grows up. So you start out when she's young, you know, sometime in elementary school, and her dad is a minister, whatever they call it there, and mom helps him out, and they're kind of distant. They don't really invest a lot of time and energy into their child. And then there's an aunt that visits rarely, but her visits make a great impact on the girl as she grows up. And so then when she's grown, she ends up going back to live in the aunt's home and becomes a part of that community, and a little bit of mystery that is involved with that. And it was just a charming read. I really enjoyed it. And then I read Barefoot Again by Kaiji. That's so little. Sorry. Kaiji Nakazawa. This is another graphic novel. And this one is interesting. It's mostly memoir. It's a fictional account, but really draws from the author's life story. So the reason this one is really interesting, this one is right before the nuclear bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it was written, I believe, in the early 70s, but it was on the cutting edge of memoirs as graphic novels. And mangas are, you know, hugely popular in Japan, so this is a common art form there. But this one, it's a little bit awkward to read as a modern reader because it's talking about such a heavy topic, but some of it, a lot of it is still written in that outlandish comic book format. So for example, the two kids in the story actually bite off several fingers, and there's a lot of violence with, you know, actual fisticuffs and slapping around and major comic book violence between the father and the kids and neighbors and, you know, things like that. So that can read a little awkwardly as a modern reader, but ties in with the manga aspect. So it's interesting to watch to see how that's evolved over time, because these graphic novel memoirs now are very impactful, and they've taken a lot of that comic book edge, most of it out, and they just tell the story. So I really got a kick out of seeing the change there. And yeah, this one, it was very interesting, obviously, from a historical aspect, and was rather gruesome when they got to the actual dropping of the bombs, and again, learned a lot. I learned so much from these graphic novels. Alright, and another graphic novel. This one is Cheese Sweet Home Part 3. And I can't say that I learned anything from these. These are what Michael from Michael Reads calls slice of life manga. So they're just cute. They're adorable. The thing I like about this series is how the main character, Chi, always finds a new little friend. And I like to see the friendships develop in these stories. But it is quite obvious that the author has cats. He or she, I'm not sure, knows a great deal about kitties. So these are fun for me. Fun. And last, but definitely not least, is the other book that I think you'll be seeing on my top 10 of 2018. Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crowe by Jessica Townsend. This is a middle grade fantasy and I highly recommend it. It is fabulous from start to finish. You're dealing with a girl who, Morgan Crowe, who, I'm confused about the timeline if it's when she turns 11 or 12, but she knows she's gonna die. And this is about an alternate world, and she escapes to it and escapes death. And the magical system is just delightful. It's just delightful characters. There's a huge talking cat that's part of her friend group, and the trials, like watching those trials develop and seeing how she performs, so interesting. And seeing the story develop. I'm super excited about this because I think there's going to be 7, 8, 9 in the series, and it's just fun to be on the beginning edge of a series that I know that I'm going to be engrossed in for the next, I don't know, 7, 8 years. So thoroughly enjoyed this. Highly recommend it. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you read it because you're going to gush about it. It's great. Yeah. So having a great reading month thus far, and hopefully I'll have another stack to talk to you about in another week or so. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon. Bye.